Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the Business Breakfast Briefers. My name is Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. And I like to make the same joke every week where they provide me with fantastic coffee as well, but they are great accountants. Okay, let's meet the panel. Today we've got Rachel Geliamassi. She's the MD of Stagecoach West. She's responsible for 550 buses on our roads, completing and supporting 40 million passenger journeys a year. She has 1,400 staff covering Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, Bristol, Wiltshire, and the company has a turnover 100 million. So it's lovely to have Rachel back on the show. We've got Tony Davey. He's the independent town councillor for Stroud. He's also chairman of the Stroud District Chamber of Commerce. He's a co-owner of Affection, Confection, and Party on the Up. Hopefully I got those the right way round. We'll be finding all about the magic £10 from him later on. We've also got Mark Stewart. He's the CEO of Stewart Golf, UK and DIT export champion, based at Waterwell's Business Park. They employ 40 staff, turnover of 7 million. They've recently launched a new golf bag, but also they've opened a brand new office in USA. God bless you. And finally, last not least, we got Deborah Potts. She's the CEO of the Music Works, a Gloucestershire charity that supports children 8,000 a year through innovative music program, workshops, and projects for young people of all abilities. And I was there the other week, and you get a chance, go down to the Music Works, but we'll find out more about that later on. Okay, we're just going to check what's making the headlines. Here we go. Okay, The Guardian, warning that relief convoy for Gaza too little too late, says the Guardian. The Daily Express, in the name of God, save the children. The Daily Mail, there is no forgiveness for this, only total annihilation of Hamas, says the Daily Mail. The Daily Telegraph, get ready to see Gaza from the inside. The Financial Times, Israel's allies warn citizens to leave Lebanon as regional tension rises. The Eye, fears grow that war will spread as UK and US tell citizens to leave Lebanon. The Times, do your bit to ease Israeli crisis. And the Mirror, reckless and callous. PM own advisor branded him Dr. Death for the Eat Out scheme during the pandemic. And the Metro, armed police swoop on water pistol boy. The Sun, my Paul died happy smoking a spliff. And the Daily Star, which does make me laugh, is this chap, a gems raider who fooled shop staff by standing in a window for hours pretending to be a mannequin. Just in case, that's the one there. Anyway, thanks ever so much. Let's get on with the panel. I mean, it's a real mixed bag, isn't it? But it's been full of Hamas, just blood and gore and all the rest of it. But there has been an important by-election in this country as well. So we're going to start with that, Tony. What have you picked for us, please?
Good morning. Yes, I'm on the late editions of the paper this morning looking at the results of the by-elections. So we've had by-election results revealed in the early hours this morning for Mid Bedfordshire, which of course used to be Nadine Dorris's constituency, and up in Tamworth as well. Now, there's been good Labour wins in those two seats, which some will say is not unusual for by-elections. But I mean, we have to look at some of the swings that are involved there, and they are quite significant. So from memory, I think we've not seen wins for Labour in, I think, Mid-Beds for the last, let me just check my notes here. I think it was for the last, for a long time. If I look, we've had Conservative wins in the last 4 elections within Tamworth. And I think those wins don't come as a terrible surprise, but I'm sure that it must be a little concerning for the Lib Dems that they've still managed to come third within Mid Bedfordshire, where you would imagine, given the problems that there have been recently, that perhaps they would have succeeded a little more. But without doubt, it is Labour and Lib Dem that have stolen that swing across. And I think it's the second biggest swing in Tamworth since the Second World War. But we also see drops from the Green Party. They're continuing not really to make inroads, and I think that's really important. And I think it's also an indication that perhaps they need to look at their policies and just see how relevant they are to the people today, because we see impacts on our economy, and I can see the damage sometimes that party politics can do at a local level, where honestly I personally think party politics shouldn't really exist. And I think they've got to be seen to have a wider, broader and deeper range of policies than perhaps the ones that they're most famous for.
I think also you bringing this to the table, that they actually overturned a majority of 24,000. And that means that every single one of our own MPs, if it replicated here in Gloucestershire, every single one of them would be wiped out. Anyway, Tony, have you got another story for us very quickly?
I have indeed. Let me just turn my flip chart over. So
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. You've got a flip chart.
I have of sorts, but it sounds better than it is. The other thing, really, and it's sort of linked to politics as well, because I do think that this has a real significant bearing on it. Pessimism taking hold. I think we've got the consumer confidence index is at lowest in 3 years, and there's all sorts of things around personal finances, how people think things are going to pan out for them come the new year. The energy crisis still exists there, of course. And one of the things that I think is underreported is we've got record numbers of people using food banks. And it almost seems to have become something that's considered to be normal. And it absolutely isn't normal. And it shouldn't be business as usual. Now, we've seen the impacts of this play out on the high street. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the segment later on about what we've seen in Punchline this week. We see that in terms of what people are spending and basket spend. I also look after elements of tourism for the Stroud district, and we've seen a poorer than we'd hoped for staycation market, and that's partly weather, but also partly people just worrying about how much money they got to spend and how much they need to keep in their wallets. So the two things I think are very much linked, and we need to unbreak the country and be able to move forward with optimism. And right now, despite the fact that there are brilliant people in all parties, we've not broken that cycle yet.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Tony. Let's go over to Rachel. What have you picked out from the papers today or online?
Good morning. So if you have a look, I've got I can't see on my tablet very well, the BBC. I know it's not brand new talking about the Wales 20-mile-per-hour speed limits, but actually the story is carrying on. And I saw it actually appear twice. There's this piece that are basically Arriva operating in the area, talking about some of their bus journeys taking as much as 12 minutes longer to get where they need to go, and having to have a look, because that's causing punctuality issues. They're also having to look at whether they actually make changes to the network, which will be cutbacks and sort of negative changes for the community. And I saw a similar story this morning that came from school bus and school coach operators, the same, fearing that this could actually have an impact on them that actually means they might not be able to carry on in business.
I mean, there must be so many... Sorry, Rachel, there must be so many variables when you're trying to plan a bus route as well, of different things happening, traffic. Yeah. I mean, to then add on a 20 mile an hour speed limit as well.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, in part of my patch, I cover Oxfordshire, and actually Oxfordshire have done quite a lot of blanket 20-mile-per-hour areas across the county. And it's been a tricky journey, because I mean, it says in this article about how many thousands of people have signed petitions. There's a lot of mixed feeling across communities. There are those that are feeling very thankful about their community feeling safer because of it, and then there are other opinions in the mix where they're being impacted because of that road congestion and those journey times. And I think from my point of view, we want to see safe road schemes rolled out across our counties. We need people to be safe. I think it's about really taking a carefully considered view of where it is rolled out, rather than just going, oh, we'll blanket it, we'll just make that whole county a 20 mile per hour, for example. I think it's actually, you need to work with your local stakeholders and look for those correct, relevant areas to do it that actually serve the correct purpose. Because I think the blanket approach then ends up causing more negative PR, and you actually lose sight of that positive safety message that can be achieved from it, and it just becomes a big political storm. So I think being more carefully considered with the application of it would actually mean it's more successful as a scheme in the first place.
Okay. Have you got another story as well?
Similar kind of, I like to see on the Independent talking about Stockholm banning petrol and diesel cars in its city centre by 2025. So it's talking about how the Swedish capital actually fares better than a lot of other big cities across the world in terms of its air quality, but that's not held it back. It's still saying, no, we've got to actually make quite a concerted effort to try and change the way that people operate into our city. And again, across my different counties, there are different things being tried, whether it's different low emission zones. I've got bus filters as an element that's coming along that's being explored. But it is really tricky at the moment because all the political heat in the background, with so much going on, actually, I've seen quite a few schemes that are actually quite positive for people making modal shift and improving air quality. They're coming under fire because of just the politics of one party to another. So it's a bit of a nerve-wracking time for me at the moment. For example, in Oxfordshire, everything around us having an electric bus city from March next year is around being able to put in bus gates that restrict traffic into certain areas of the city. And that's been one of many different road schemes that actually politically lots of people are throwing into the press and putting under jeopardy at the moment. So it's a bit of a nerve-wracking time for bus operators, dependent on how the chips fall.
Okay, right. Thanks ever so much for that, Rachel. We're going to go over to you now, Mark. What have you picked out for us from the national press, please?
So I've gone for a couple of lighter stories. There's an awful lot of politics and war and all the rest of it. So the one that literally caught my eye, I don't know if it's going to come across on the screen, is this chap. Oh, wait, lights doing it. But anyway, this chap is 94, and he through COVID taken up a hobby of 3D printing, and he was trying to create a model of basically his dad's car. So this guy's 94, so it was a 1930, I don't know what this is, but a Talbot Darracq. It looks like a Rolls Royce to me. And he was looking online for pictures of this model of car, so he could then do his CAD and get the 3D model. Turns out he went on the Bonham's website, found a picture of it. He's like, wait a minute, that's the car. That's my dad's car. And he sold it in like 1950 or something like that. So him and his son's 58, said, well, we've got to buy it. So they bought it, and they've spent, between them and a restorer, spent 3,000 hours on this car, and now it's back on the road.
Wow.
And just it's a really lovely piece of sort of that family history and all these memories. Goosebumps. Just so even I don't even know the guy, but goosebumps even thinking about it. That kind of lovely, warm thing that is sort of I don't know, those things that sort of just live in people. I think it's a really lovely thing that now that's part of the family and it'll get passed down. So I think it's a really lovely, heartwarming story.
Oh, nice story. Thanks for that. Mark, have you got one other, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, less heartwarming, a bit creepy, but no less sort of amusing. So Tony Fernandez, who owns AirAsia, his own Formula One teams in the past, for some reason had a stressful week last week. So I ended up having a topless massage in a meeting. So
I wouldn't do that in any of my meetings. That's a fact.
No. So I've now had sort of various requests within Stewart Golf to be saying, are we going to get a masseuse? Can that be a thing that we can have? Sort of, if we're having a meeting, we can all get massages and stuff. And I'm not. I think it's. I don't know. To be fair, I don't know where this was, so I don't know sort of culturally how this works. But I'm not. It's not a good look at the very least.
It's not a great look, is it? No. Thanks ever so much for that, Mark. Deborah, thanks ever so much for joining us today at Punchline Talks. Really great to have you on the show. What have you picked out for us?
Yeah, so I went very on topic for the music works and found in The Guardian, music publishers sue Amazon-backed AI company over song lyrics. And I guess I just think AI and the effect it's having is just so interesting on all sorts of different sectors. And it feels like we're obviously just at the beginning. Well, probably in my head, it's probably been going on for ages, but it feels like it's all just really beginning to surface and be used more and more. And there are loads of pros around that, but also some cons, and people are trying to kind of work out what they are and what the kind of legalities are. And so this particular story was around, I read it out, it says, music publishers Universal Music sued the artificial intelligence company Anthropic, accusing it of misusing innumerable copyrighted song lyrics to train its chatbot Claude. So it's basically trained Claude in all these sorts of lyrics from the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Mark Ronson, and then Claude is kind of using them when people are asking. So, for instance, apparently someone said, can you write me a song around Buddy Holly dying? And it basically recreated American Pie, which apparently was an infringement of copyright. So the actual kind of story is probably a bit like... But I think it's more the AI and how that's starting to be litigated against and how people are kind of working it out. And certainly the impact on AI for the music sector is being significant and will continue to be significant. So I think a lot of people will be watching this story and seeing how it plays out.
It's funny you should mention it as well. Obviously, in journalism, it's big news. You know, people think they can use it. And we here at Punchline, we can spot press release that's been written by AI from miles away. It just doesn't have the detail in there. It's only as good what you actually put in there. You know, I've had other people show me on screen writing sorts of press previews or reviews of theatre shows and things. And yes, it does build that bulk of it, but it doesn't really give the sort of nuances about that you can normally give. And of course, they're all pretty much the same. They're pretty bloody boring between you and me. Anyway, that's my opinion. Deborah, have you got anything else?
Yes, so my other one, let me just find it, was about childcare reform. It was in quite an academic paper called the Confection. And its kind of basic sort of premise was saying that, you know, parents on average are now spending over £7,000 a year on a child for their childcare. And that while education is seen as the responsibility of the state and free education is universal for all children, childcare isn't. That's very much still seen as something that the parents have to sort out. And so that creates lots of inequalities. And loads of research shows that those early years are one of the most important times of shaping a person's life. And yet they immediately, because of this inequality, end up going into school already sort of with everyone sitting in different places. And so it had a variety. It was a kind of discussion piece really around, should childcare become like education, become part of the state? And it talked about kind of various different options. And I just thought, I mean, my kids are grown up, I'm past that stage, but I know how hard it is, and I see lots of kind of new parents working at the Music Works and suddenly just really trying to balance that, trying to work and having young children. So I just thought it was a really interesting article and a debate that's worth having.
No, thanks ever so much for that, Deborah. And yeah, it's true. It stops so many people getting into work, isn't it? It's so expensive nowadays. Let's go back over to you, Tony. Tony, you've there in Stroud, you've launched something called the Magic £10, is it? What's all that about?
It's a national campaign that we lead as the Chamber of Trade for the district across the towns here in the Stroud district, called the Magic Tenner, and it's about the importance of spending money locally. So if you spend £10 in a local independent shop such as ours, or any of the other 46 that are taking part, and then some, then that can actually be worth up to £50 to the local economy, which, if that isn't magic, I don't know what is. And it's because independent businesses like us often shop and use other local independent businesses, whether that's for our office supplies or our IT, or whether it's something we go and get for lunch, or in my case, an awful lot of takeaways. So if I look here, for example, here within Party On Up, we use another 26 other local businesses. So as we continue to keep that money in our local economy, then that just helps to bring it up. And that's something that we definitely need to do, because where we can, we need to think local first, because that's helping our local job opportunities. It's helping the opportunity for people to open up businesses and grow. And of course, we support local communities, be those people that would otherwise be quite isolated, or whether we're just looking at, we're inundated at the present moment for raffle prizes and various things. You're not going to get those off of an international seller somewhere else. So it really is important to, where you can, think local first.
Thanks ever so much for that, Tony. I think we all agree with that sentiment. Let's go to you, Rachel. Rachel, obviously we've touched on the sort of bus services and things. How has it been since the pandemic, actually? Have bus travel come back now, bounced back? I mean, you said earlier, 40 million buses journeys.
Passenger journeys, yeah. And what Tony was saying there around Stroud in particular, our Stroud network is absolutely flourishing in terms of seeing bus users connecting themselves. And we're seeing people move around the Stroud area, but we are also seeing those going out, doing the hospitality, leisure, connecting to the other towns around Stroud. And just the same, we're bringing lots and lots of people into Stroud as well, because it's really lifted with some of it, the Stroud proposition, like, you know, what it's got in the town since it was developed. Actually, it's been making some really wonderful strides. So Stroud, I'm really, really proud of. Generally, I mean, bus services went down during the pandemic. We were only carrying about 20% of our passengers, so it was an all-time low. And my coach services weren't carrying anybody. It was, you don't know if coaches are going to restart in the country. It was that bleak at one point. So since then, it's just really been about trying to get everybody back on board buses. But because patterns have changed, you're not trying to go back to where you were. You're actually trying to cater to the needs of some new patterns and some new behaviours, because people have reset their lives and their priorities. And a lot of people, not everyone, some people did carry on working as normal and went to those same locations and their patterns didn't change. But we definitely did see a large proportion that did totally change behaviours and switch priorities up. So we have seen those changes, but now it's looking really, really good. I mean, we're at, in some places, we're exceeding the levels of passengers we had before the pandemic. It's really bounced back in a lot of areas, and it's a bit less on the commuters, obviously, because of the hybrid work. That absolutely is something we can tell on bus networks, but much more on the people are going out and saying, let's go and have some, even though there's the cost of living crisis, we are still seeing people go out, do that shopping. They're spending more in the town centres, we're hearing, when they're out, but they are going for those, still paying to have meals and doing some of those other social and leisure activities.
Are they travelling less, though? That, you know, what, that's the some sort of data we're getting back, is that people might be shopping the same, but they're not travelling so much.
Yeah, well, our numbers are looking really, really good in terms of people getting out and about. So yes, I think the data we get from towns and city centre shopping facilities are saying, yes, it might be less, but people are spending more when they do come out. But I think we're also doing okay with people going out for food, going out for walks with the family, connecting to the scenic parts of their local area. So I think there's still plenty of reasons people are leaving the house. But definitely we're catering to different patterns than we were a few years ago.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Rachel. I'm a big fan of the buses, as you know. I don't live far from town, so I hop on and off all the time. And Mark, I'm a big fan of your products as well, because I have a Stewart golf buggy, as you know, and a golf bag, which I use regularly. So let's talk all about America. I mean, during the pandemic, you've done exceedingly well. Can we start with that? Because what actually happened from the pandemic, and then the States, what you've done there?
Yeah, so the pandemic golf was one of the very few industries or sort of sectors of industry that did really well out of through COVID. So golf is a very naturally socially distanced sport. You're outdoors, all that kind of stuff. So It was one of the few things that remained. And although in the UK it was I think it got banned a couple of times, sort of just got thrown in with everything else. In the States, that never happened. So there's a few things that all happened at the same time there that were really beneficial for us. Was that one, golf was still being played and at a higher rate because of the natural sort of suitability. But also the things with the American golf market, anybody that's played golf there, is that it's kind of a buggy market. So people sit in the golf carts and drive around a lot. So, but obviously through COVID, there's normally two people in each buggy. But because of COVID, they became single rider only. So in effect, the capacity of them halved, but the demand increased. So actually, there were a lot of people that wanted to play golf that then couldn't. So people were then saying, well, I don't want to carry a golf bag around because I'm not used to that. So I could do with a golf trolley. So anybody really that was in the golf trolley market that was selling into the States at that point was basically went through the roof. So our business there more than tripled almost overnight. Which was amazing. And of course, that's good news here because we manufacture in the UK. So at Waterwells, that's where we build everything. So that was fantastic. And that's obviously the rate of growth hasn't continued, but we haven't, what we were always afraid of was that we would sort of go up through COVID and then come straight back down the other side. But actually, we've continued to grow in the States, which is great. So that's so obviously that was 2020, 2021, and 2022. We managed to maintain and still grow sales through the marketing we've done. But the other thing that we've been looking at on the other side of it is our foundations in the States. So we've been using a lot of third-party sort of warehousing and really trying to keep our cost base low while still giving the right service. But we use this phrase "future perfect" all the time. What's our future perfect situation? And our future perfect there is like, well, look, if we're going to grow it like we think we can grow it, we need to have our own people. We need to be in control of more things. So we did make that decision at the tail end of last year, and by April we opened our first office there. So we've now got 3 people in Houston, in Texas. And actually, even though we're only 6 or 7 months into that, we're now saying, well, actually, we could probably do with a bigger place. We could do with more people. So it's really exciting time. So now the US, I just did our stats for our year to date so far, and we're actually now more than 50% of our sales come from the US. Wow. So it's great, but that's it. Because of that demand, we're employing more people here to build a new product. So yes, it's really positive. I'm really happy with it.
Did you open it in Houston? So you say, Houston, we have a problem. No,
you know what? We haven't actually used that yet. I think in the some people obviously in the golf industry press, people have been talking about Houston. We have liftoff and things like that.
So I was trying to find your golf bags then at the bottom of the screen, but I couldn't find it when I looked up. Thanks ever so much for that, Mark, and congratulations on that as well. So let's go over to you, Deborah. Deborah, great to see you. Tell us all about the Music Works, please.
So yeah, the Music Works is a charity. We've got our main hub in Gloucester, and actually we start building a new hub in Cinderford next week, which is really exciting. Although we actually began as Forest of Dean music makers, so we have had a small music studio there for many, many years. And our mission is to use music to transform the lives of young people. So everyone loves music, and young people more than anyone. Survey after survey says it's their #1 thing. So we use that love of music to really engage with them and then support them. Some of them might want an artistic journey. So we have an artistic development program, which is really successful. We've just had one artist sign with Sony very recently, is doing really well. And we have lots of others doing really well. So we have that. But equally, we will have young people where they might have a love of music, but that's not really their career direction. But it's just what we know that music is it's great for bringing young people together, helping them make connections. It's great for just giving them an outlet if they're struggling with their mental health, for instance, and helping them feel good at something. And it helps them feel in control. And that's really how we work with them. So we have amazing results. We work with the NHS, we work with the police. We are a massive national award-winning charity that wins awards all the time around the change that we make with young people through music. So yeah, if you don't know of us, if you haven't been down to us, our main hub is in King Square in Gloucester. and you're very welcome. We'd love to show you around.
And you've got some amazing backers as well, haven't you? Can you just explain about that? The studios are named after them.
Yeah, so we kind of, when we went out with we did a crowdfunder, and that sort of got a lot of interest, and suddenly all these kind of quite famous names started popping out of the woodwork. So Guy Moot is the CEO of Warner Chappell Music, so they're one of the world's biggest publishers. So he grew up in Hester's Way, and so he had experienced what it was like to try to not be in a big city and trying to kind of make music. So he's a really big backer. In fact, I got an email from him yesterday. We're going to meet him. Warner come and they support a lot of our artist development stuff. We're able to provide interns for young people there. Their A&R team comes down, so they're really great supporters. We also have Genelec, who are one of the biggest global speaker providers, really high-end speakers, really value-based companies. So they just loved what we were doing. So they provide all of our speakers. So we've also got a mobile music bus. We've got Genelec speakers in there. We've got Genelec speakers in Gloucester. We've got Genelec speakers we will have in Cinderford. So they're a really good backer. And then people like Gavin Maud, who's Coldplay's lawyer. He grew up in Gloucester as well, so he supports us pro bono with some of our kind of legals. And then Jed Doherty, previous CEO of Sony, he's one of our trustees, does loads of stuff for us, and then they help make connections. So it really enables us to provide really proper industry links for young people, so that it really helps them with that success journey.
And it's absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe the studio, what they've got up there as well. Some serious kit. Thanks ever so much for that, Deborah. Inspiring, it really was. We're kind of running out of time already, so it's time for the pick of the punchline. So I'm going to start with you, actually, Rachel. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Rachel, what have you picked out from Punchline? I shimmy, by the way, then.
Can't see my tablet today. It's the Amazon drones delivering to people. Kind of glad at the thought of maybe less road congestion if there are fewer vans clogging up, but then does that make more people want to get in their car and go out and drive on the roads? I don't know. Mixed feelings. And also, the more we deliver to our homes, the less we've got people going into our towns and city centres to buy things. So lots of factors at play. So thank you for that, to provoke my thoughts.
It's the noise that puts me off. Mark, what have you picked out, please, for pick of the punchlines?
There's a story about is working from home coming to an end. So there's a story about 64% of leaders globally and 63% in the UK expect a full return to work by 2026. So it's kind of I've seen both sides of the coin work. I'm at home right now. But I'm lucky enough to be able to have an office set up here. But I've heard stories of people that feel really isolated and don't like being at home the whole time, and it's mental health. I don't think it's good. But for us, because we have a factory, so we've got 40 people, probably 35 of those people are directly involved in making things. So you can't do that from home. So I'm very much a fan of working from a central hub. And partly because that's obviously it's necessary in a manufacturing environment, but even I think from just a collaboration point of view, people deal with people, and if you don't have this sort of overhearing of conversations and accidental things and these kind of chats that you wouldn't make a Zoom call to have a little chat about something, but you might bump into somebody in when you're making a cup of tea. I think it's so important for the culture of a business to be together. But equally, I understand flexible working is important as well. So I think there's a balance to be struck. But I think the pendulum for me is swung too far to being at home. I think there's kind of a time bomb ticking of actually how that affects people's mindsets.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Mark. Deborah, what have you picked out from this week's Punchlines?
Yeah, so I picked on the GL1 meeting that was happening last night with the council around whether they were going to be putting in money to be able to help get it back up and running more quickly. I used to be CEO of Active Gloucestershire and have been involved in the physical activity sector for a lot of my career. So I really know how important it is that facilities like that exist, and in terms of keeping people active and community together. And I know how hard Aspire worked in such hard times. So it's very sad what's happened. I think I Googled this morning, I'm fairly sure the councillors agreed that they would release this money. So that looks positive for it. So fingers crossed that that gets open as quickly as possible.
Well, I was there last night at the council meeting and didn't get home till 9 o'clock last night. It was a very heated debate, I can tell you that now. And you'll have to read Punchline later on to find out the thing. But one of the big things from that is the money. You've always got to follow the money in business, and we've found the money. So we'll be breaking that later on today. Thanks for that, Deborah. Tony, last one. Pick of the punchlines. What we picked for us, please, sir.
So a couple of days ago, you covered a story whilst there's sirens going on in the background. Possibly you can hear about shop thefts. And that coincides with the story that's in this morning's Telegraph that shoplifting, or as it really should be called, crime against business, has hit a record of 1,000 a day. And we're also, unfortunately, looking at a record low of detection rates. Now, we're quite lucky in parts of Gloucestershire because here we have Stroud Safe, we have Gloucester City Safe, schemes that businesses pay into to share information across the radio network. Many businesses are taking preventative measures, but let's not ever think this is a victimless crime, because it absolutely isn't. And don't be fooled into thinking that it is solely because of the cost of living crisis, because to be honest, that's a bit of a smokescreen behind a real explosion in crime against business right now.
Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Thanks ever so much. That's all we've got time for today. I'd like to thank our fantastic panel for joining us, for Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors for sponsoring the show. And if you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week. So for now, bye.